Am I the a-hole for not using my son's college tuition to help bail my stepdaughter out of credit card debt? I have been remarried to my amazing new wife for about 6 years now. She has moved in with me along with her now 23-year-old daughter. After my most recent divorce, I have saved money aside so I can put my son through college. He has just turned 18 now. My stepdaughter unfortunately has had difficulties managing her money responsibly. She has gone on shopping sprees during the pandemic using the CARE Act stimulus checks from the government to buy herself Louis Vuitton bags and red-bottom heels. We understand that she has put herself in a difficult position. That's why we are considering bailing her out just once to help her. My wife says that we should use the money from my son's college fund to bail her out. I refuse to, because I have saved that money specifically for my son. My wife is upset. She thinks that we should operate as a team and treat each child as if they were our own. Am I the a-hole in this situation? Now for the top comments before reading the little update. Not the a-hole. Using extra savings? Sure. But she's asking you to take away from your son to help her daughter. Blood or not, she's literally asking you to prioritize one kid over the other. Kind of hypocritical. Have discussed extra savings but have left the college fund off the table. Do you think she's just mad that she doesn't have access to it? Yes, I think she wants to spend it rather than let your son have it. Don't let her have access. That is for your son's future. Do not let your wife take the money to spend on the irresponsible daughter. Can you imagine how his son would feel? Dad paid off my stepsister's Louis Vuitton accessories with my college fund, so now I'm waiting tables and going half-time at school. Won't graduate until I'm 25, and will probably be in debt from student loans. But it's all good, because my sister's horrible credit rating got a bump for a couple of months. She just trashed it again after those couple of months, because why not? Mom and stepdad will bail her out again, right? You ever touch the money you have saved for your son's education to pay off a 23-year-old woman's shopping spree bad decisions? Then you will be the a-hole. Your wife is the one to talk. Tell her your son will be spreeing on his education. Who's gonna pay off the credit card for him? Not the a-hole. Honestly, 23 is old enough to know better, and I'm wondering if she's tried reselling her fancy items to chip away at the debt. If she hasn't sold her items, I wouldn't give her a penny. Of course, you're not the a-hole. Your stepdaughter can get a job like an adult and pay off her credit card. If your wife wants to give her a loan from her own finances, that's fine and dandy. But you shouldn't punish the good kid because the bad kid doesn't know how to behave. Edit. Thank you for all the responses. I didn't realize this post was going to blow up. I have decided I will not be providing my stepdaughter any funds out of my son's college tuition. My wife and I have scheduled counseling to discuss further steps. Rest assured, my stepdaughter will have to learn to cover this herself. Will not be responsible and will not punish my son because of poor spending on her side. Again, thank you for all the replies. Now for the next story. Am I the a-hole for embarrassing my brother-in-law after he told people I was their au pair? Hi. My 22 female sister's husband had a formal work party where they were supposed to bring their families. As soon as we got there, the host came to greet us and she told me that the other girls are in the backyard. I see women around my age separated from the party with a lot of children and realized they were the babysitters/au pairs. I didn't mind and went there since I was there to take care of the children anyways. At one point, someone asked me if I was the last name's au pair because they were asking for me. I didn't care that people assumed. I'm on the age range for it, and it's not common for people to bring their sisters to small parties like that, so it was okay. At some point, a pregnant couple was talking about being indecisive about getting an au pair, and everyone very happily started talking about it, because apparently rich people are proud of having expensive workers as much as they're proud of having expensive cars. They started discussing about prizes, what are and aren't acceptable chores for au pairs to have, and when everyone started giving examples of what their au pairs do, my brother-in-law said that his only did kids-related chores. I chuckled and pointed that I also make breakfast for him, which I do. I thought that the rudeness/disrespect of butting in on a conversation and contradicting him would be enough, but it wasn't. There was a playground around the corner, and the babysitters were organizing the things to take the kids there. My niece ran to her dad to ask if Auntie could take her there with the rest of the kids. Someone questioned him why he calls me Auntie, and he told them he thought that having the kids calling me Auntie would make them more comfortable with me. I said, and I thought that having him marrying my sister would make him nicer to me. My sister wasn't at any of the two occasions. We left the party an hour after that, and he still is super mad. He said I shouldn't try to make him look bad in front of people from the work that pays for my living, and that it wouldn't have hurt my pride to just stay quiet for one night, since I don't even know these people anyways. I'm feeling super guilty, and I feel like I might be the a-hole, because even if it isn't official, I kinda am their au pair. I do chores and help around, and they let me live rent-free and take care of my bills, so I think it was kinda ungrateful of me. And I also understand that they're one of the youngest couples, and therefore less successful, of the business, so we just wanted to fit in and not be the poor one that didn't have a full-time employee. My sister said it was not a big deal, but is still mad, and I feel like an A for sleeping in the house he bought while having disrespected him like that. So am I the a-hole? Not the a-hole. He disrespected you. Your family, and he cares more how they see him. He lied to them. That makes him an a-hole. He is trying to keep up with the Joneses. Yeah, he was treating Opie like a servant and distancing himself from Opie with the way he talked about her. Honestly, I feel like not all rich people are snobs. They would be more skeptical about a liar than someone whose younger sister came along to play with her niece and enjoy the party. A family man. There were literally parents there, or people who were soon to be parents. Opie's brother-in-law missed the opportunity to say, "Well, my wife's sister likes to help us out with our daughter. It saves us money, and we can trust her with our daughter. We appreciate her helping us, so we invited her along." The pregnant couple was also talking about how much to pay the person, so this would have been a good way to put it, and it shows he is an appreciative person who also values family. He dug his own grave by lying and the truth comes out. Everyone there seemed into kids/families, so it probably would have been fine if Opie was just Auntie instead of Auntie the babysitter. Not the a-hole. As someone who could easily afford to hire a few au pairs, your brother-in-law is an a-hole. I grew up with few au pairs, off and on. There's nothing wrong with talking about au pairs or how much they contract out for, as long as the contract stipulates you can. What matters is how you treat and talk to/about people helping your family. Absolutely this, and thank you for saying it. Also, that little white lie could have a snowball effect for future events with his co-workers. He set a precedent, and Opie would be expected to keep up the charade. Good for Opie for speaking up in a gentle and playful way. Not the a-hole. You're his sister-in-law, not his employee. You honestly were doing him a favor just by watching his kid, and he was overstepping his bounds with you. Do not buckle to him. He was the rude one here. And if he cares about looking rich around all his work buddies, he can go and actually get an au pair. Next story. Am I the a-hole for kicking my sister out after her son gave my dog dreadlocks? My sister is a single mom with one son, 14. They have been staying at my place for the past few because they lost their apartment, and she's saving up money to get a new apartment. She, however, has driven me crazy lately. She's up late at night on the phone or watching TV. I go to work at 3:30 a.m., so I've been getting less sleep. Her son constantly bothers my daughter. She has brought men over from the bars, etc. She doesn't do chores. They make messes, and I've addressed these issues so many times that I get ignored. The final straw came when I came home from work last night and I saw that my dog had dreadlocks. Not a lot, but like maybe 8 or so. WTF? I'm not sure if that's alright. He sure didn't seem comfortable and was pawing at them. I'm worried because I've heard horror stories about people who didn't wash properly and nasty stuffs grow inside of dreadlocks. I asked him about it, and he said he thought it looked cool and is not finished yet. I was so pissed when I saw that, and later I found out he posted it on TikTok. That was the final straw. I told my sister she had to leave. She, of course, pulled the whole "but we're family" card, saying how she's a struggling mom and how it's just a dog and it's not a big deal. I told her I'm sick of this. He knew better. And quite honestly, I'm tired of them living with me. She, of course, called my parents, who sided with me thankfully, but our siblings and cousins took her side, who bombarded me with texts and calls telling me I need to take them back. She eventually moved in with my brother. Anyways, I'm wondering if I did the right thing here. I feel bad because they're struggling, but giving my dog dreadlocks was just crossing the line. Not the a-hole. They took her side because they're scared she's going to try and live with them. Take your dog to a groomer ASAP. The dog could get so uncomfortable that he rips them out and then gets an infection. In addition, who knows what he used to bind them. I would be throwing their crap out the windows the moment I saw my pup. That's not how grateful guests behave. Not at A-Hall. I would have kicked her out when she started bringing random men into your house when you have a daughter at home and didn't clean up after herself. Didn't realize it sounded so bad from how I wrote it. My house has a garage that's not attached to the main building, which is where her bedroom is. She brought men there, not inside the main building, that I know of. Not at A-Hall. Our siblings and cousins took her side who bombarded me with texts and calls. Did these helpful individuals offer to take her in while they were berating you? A struggling mom, who was really struggling, would be appreciative of your generosity and take care to treat your place and the inhabitants respectfully. My brother did. However, he wasn't so hostile about it like the others were. Some of them live in other states, but the rest didn't, so yeah, you got a point there. Last story is titled, Am I the a-hole for telling my boyfriend it was my sister who stole his stuff from him despite my parents' disapproval? I, female 25, have been with my boyfriend Adam, male 26, for over a year. He's so wonderful and adores my family and loves visiting them regularly. There was an accident about a week ago while me and Adam were visiting my parents for dinner. His stuff, his phone, car keys, medication, and $200 was gone missing. We looked all over the house but couldn't find the stuff. My 18-year-old sister was in her room the entire time, except for a few minutes to ask what we were looking for. Me and Adam had to go home in an Uber still feeling shaken up and confused. Adam kept stressing out about his medication, which is the most valuable among the stuff he lost, and had a hard time getting replacement for it. I went back to my parents the next day to continue looking for Adam's missing stuff, and found it in my sister's room, the only place we didn't look. I was dumbfounded. I waited for her to come back from school and confronted her. My mom started making excuses instead of asking my sister why she took Adam's stuff. I shamed her and said I was going to tell Adam, and will absolutely support him if he decides to take legal action since the $200 weren't returned. Mom freaked out and begged me to lie to Adam and say I found his stuff in the bathroom cabinet instead of saying my sister stole it. But I refused. My sister broke down crying, saying if I tell Adam, I'll ruin her relationship with him. But I believe he needed to know the house he enters isn't safe for him. Mom said she couldn't believe I'm willing to encourage Adam to take legal action and ruin my sister's chance to her college application. My parents said they'd cut me off if this happens. This was the last time we talked. 2 days ago, Adam told me Mom called saying they found his stuff in the bathroom cabinet and gave it to me, but I was keeping it. I was stunned. Okay, first of all, the stuff is in my possession. Yes, but I was waiting on Mom and Dad to pay the $200 so I could have my sister return them to my boyfriend along with the other stuff and apologize, hoping we'd work this out without involving authorities. But Mom went ahead of me and told the story she made up to Adam. I laid out the facts to him and told him what really happened. That my sister stole his stuff, and that despite being ashamed of Mom and sister, I still gave them the opportunity to resolve this peacefully. Then I told him I support him in whatever decision he makes. Adam was in dismay and very upset he confronted my parents, and they kept denying. Mom was furious. She kept crying, saying I failed to do them this one small favor to tell a white lie to Adam, but I just ruined the entire family's relationship with him, and anything that comes out of this is my fault after making them look like liars and my sister like a vicious thief. My whole family are in conflict and are shaming me for exposing my sister and making a fuss over a small mistake. I haven't seen Adam since the day he found out. Neither party are happy, and I'm being blamed and accused of escalating things. Everyone sucks here. Almost. I'm going with your A-Slight A-Hall because you didn't return the stuff to Adam and tell him what happened the day you found it. Your family's a pile of major A-Holes. Your sister needs the consequences which are due to her. Adam's not an a-hole. Yeah, I don't get why Opie didn't immediately give him his stuff. That was just a weird choice, especially medication. And Opie's sister didn't make a small mistake. She stole from Adam, came out, asked what they were looking for, and when she knew it was the stuff she stole, she just slunk back to her room. She knowingly stole all of his things. And the parents are like, no big deal. And Mom and her lies? What the hell? Someone in the damn family still shoved it in the bathroom and took the $200. What is wrong with this entire family? Everyone sucks here except Adam. Your family sucks for obvious reasons, but so do you. You should have told him the moment you returned and located his stuff and given him the opportunity to take whatever action he needed to. The truth of it is that you broke his trust by waiting for the money and then hopefully sweeping it under the rug. Your delay and lack of honesty meant that your mother was able to feed him the narrative that painted you in the worst light. Of course, he won't trust you again, or at least shouldn't. You're acting just like your entitled family no matter what your intent was. Actually, this is an interesting angle I hadn't considered. Would Opie have outed her family if her mom wouldn't have told her bonehead story? Because it kind of seems like maybe they convinced her to shut up. Why wouldn't you just tell him the truth, and then tell him you're working on recouping his $200? I'm kind of wavering on whether she was actually as committed to the truth as she claims now. Info. Why did you wait 2 whole days to give him back his meds and his phone? I waited for my parents to get the $200 as I told them to. Then I was planning on having a family meeting where my sister comes clean about what she did. $200 is a lot. It's not easy to get that much money, and I know how much Adam worked for it. I get it. But if I were without my meds and phone for 2 extra days because my girlfriend wanted to get everything back to me all at once, I'd be pissed about that too. Very minor a-hole move by you, but overall not a-hole. I'm so happy that my ex-wife is miserable. 3 years ago, I, 48 male, found out my wife, 46 female, was having an affair. She met a guy at work and came home one day telling me she was in love with him, no longer loved me, and wanted a divorce. This was a guy she'd only known for 3 months at that time. She and I had been together since we were in our 20s, and we have 3 kids, 28 male, 26 male, and 23 female. Well, I tried to fight for my marriage and didn't want a divorce, but she simply would not stop seeing this guy. Then after one weekend where she disappeared from Friday afternoon to Sunday night, I ended up throwing her out of the house. She immediately moved in with this guy. The only excuse she ever gave me was, "I never wanted to hurt you, but there's just something about this guy, and I deserve to be happy." That was it. That was the depth of her reasoning for throwing everything we built together away. We ended up finalizing our divorce in early 2022, and although I had very hard feelings toward her, I faked it enough to get pretty favorable divorce terms from her. It seemed she was so eager to be with her dream man that she didn't have time for a long divorce. So in the end, I got to keep my pension in the house, which I had bought from my grandmother. I did have to give her half of my 401k, however. The effect on our kids was pretty devastating. All 3 of them took it very hard. My oldest son told her that if she chose this man, he'd never have a relationship with her again. And as of right now, neither of our sons has a relationship with their mother. Our daughter does talk to her from time to time, but their relationship is very strained to say the least. My daughter is a very kind person and she tries, but she usually ends her conversations with her mother even more upset than when they started. Then about 4 months after the divorce, my ex contacted me out of the blue. She told me she had made a terrible mistake and asked if she could come home. Her dream man turned out to be an alcoholic who she says is verbally abusive and wasted all of her money. I used this opportunity to tell her exactly what I thought of her as a person, a wife, and a mother. I told her this was her life now and to deal with it. I told her she no longer had a home in this house and to never contact me again. Then a few things happened over the last year that have driven her to start trying to contact me again. First off, I met someone. My sister introduced me to a friend of hers who is also divorced, and she and I hit it off. We've been seeing each other since last summer, and while we agreed that neither of us wants to get married again, we are together. Once my ex heard about this, she once again tried to contact me, but I ignored her. My son also got married and didn't invite his mother. She again contacted me to try to get me to intervene on her behalf, and I told her I would talk to him, but I never did. Secretly, I feel like she deserves all the pain she's feeling when it comes to our kids. She destroyed our family without so much as an afterthought. Too bad. So sad. Now, she recently told our daughter that she finally broke it off with a dream man because she couldn't take his drinking and total lack of responsibility. He wasted her half of the 401k that I had to give her. He also totaled her car driving drunk. This from a man in his 40s. Again, she knew this guy for 3 months and torpedoed our whole family for him. On the face of it, I act like I feel sorry for her, but inside, I really delight in the fact that she's so unhappy. Call me evil or whatever, I don't care. She brought this on herself and it serves her right. I actually had to sit there one Saturday night while she got ready for a date with this guy and laughed on the phone with her friend about how awkward our living situation was. I lived in hell for over a year because of her. Wait until she finds out our son and his wife are going to have a baby later this year. Maybe if she had been able to keep her legs closed, she'd get to meet her grandchild. Enjoy your crappy one-bedroom apartment and your broken-down used car. Me and my new partner will think of you when we're on vacation in Hawaii this summer. Hawaii was the trip my ex and I always planned to take once our daughter finished college. Maybe I'll send her pictures. Now for the top comments. Unless you've been there, it is impossible to understand the mind screw that is an exit affair. Seeing the natural consequences come to fruition must be something. I hope Hawaii is amazing. And yes, it's a totally destabilizing to literally have the person you've been with since you're 20 come home from work one day and tell you they've fallen in love with someone they've only known for a few months and they want a divorce. I'm sorry if this happened to you. Well, if it isn't the consequences of my own actions. I mean, Opie tried to make it work and she was in love with some douche. The guy knew she was married and was cool with it? Nah, that's a great AA hat. She got what was coming to her. Best revenge is living well. My mom always said this. I didn't believe her until I was older. It truly is the best revenge. I always say beware the vengeance of a patient person. Life catches up to a-holes, and it's fun to watch when it does. Post the heck out of those vacation pictures. Try and get local paper to cover your trip. I legit live in a town small enough that this could definitely happen. I've observed this from another perspective. The leaving woman being, well, I wouldn't call a friend, but someone who hung out in the same crowd as I did. And they just kind of followed me around even though we're not let's meet up and do fun stuff friends. Anyway, she had a stable but, according to her, boring husband. And after almost a decade of marriage, she just wanted a little adventure. The rest follows the pattern of the story. Find an exciting man who not surprisingly had a reason why he was on the market in his 40s. Divorce, alienate the family, go back to trying to relive their 20s in bars and so forth. Then, come to a realization that it's a pretty empty life, and that the new fun guy was like those friends who were only fun to drink with. Then get super upset that her ex-husband and the rest of the family had moved on, and she was no longer invited. The kicker was that she always told herself as the victim in all this, saying she just had one tiny mistake, and everyone else blew it out of proportions. Naturally, she just wanted validation and pretty much unfriended everyone on Facebook who disagreed with her being the blameless victim. Thus, so ended my connection with her as well. Sounds like you knew my ex-wife. Only difference was it was a woman she left for, but everything else in the story fits perfectly. Next story. My 41 male wife, 40 female cheated on me with my best friend, 42 male. So, I'm now in the aftermath of the situation as she has moved out and divorce papers have been filed, but I still wake up feeling angry and betrayed every day. My wife and I had both come from previous divorces. She had cheated on her first husband. Red flag, I know. And we were a couple and lived together for nearly 8 years without being married, as neither of us really wanted to go down that road again. I got a career position with my job, however, and told her it would be smart to get married for insurance and tax purposes. She didn't think that was a great reason, but then she proposed to me a few months later. This only lasted 5 or less months, before I eventually discovered that she had started reaching out to people, sending pictures and such. The discovery process was slow. I learned that she had fooled around with a female friend. Later learned she tried to sleep with a husband too. Yet I knew that there was a man in another state that she regularly sent pictures and lewd messages to. And then I found her journal. In her journal, I saw that in October of last year, she finally did it. For 3 days straight while I was out of town for training. I confronted her and she wouldn't tell me who. I guessed the man in another state and she said yes, it was him. I also found out that on my birthday in December, she supposedly was going to a coworker's birthday party, but I noticed from text logs that she had contacted my best friend at midnight several times. It took a lot of snooping to discover everything. We had scheduled counseling. She claimed to be serious about working on it, but I discovered her Discord chats. She was cheating on me with my best friend. Regularly. On my birthday, I took said friend to a professional football game for his birthday, the day after Christmas, all the time. It continued even after we had scheduled counseling, after my friend knew we were trying to work on it. There's so many more details, but she agreed to a divorce and has since moved out. I have to pay her thousands of dollars to get her off the deed to the house, so I guess it's a lose-lose for me, but I'm trying to move forward. I guess I'm posting this here because even though I scheduled counseling in December, it doesn't start until next month. 3 total families affected minimum, all with children. I'm not sure if there's more, and I fear I will lose my relationship with my stepdaughter because of all this. I just want the hate out of my heart at this point. But for right now, if either of you are reading this, screw you, and you deserve each other. Edit. Yes, I know. Marrying a prior cheater was stupid. Believe me when I tell you that I loved her up to and even after the point that I had discovered she cheated. She led me to believe that I was her world for 8 years, prior to getting married, and I was foolish enough to believe it. Only in the end did I realize how easily she could lie to me. Work out. Get a hobby. Ditch the friend. Best revenge is living a better life. Very much this. But logic often evades us in times of great emotional distress, and this is a double betrayal. The hate will take time and effort to dissipate. My ex is in her late 40s and living with her parents. I am 3 years older than her and I'm retiring in 3 years. My mama cheated on my dad 25 years ago, has been penniless since, and she finally lost her trailer because she preferred to sit on her butt all day for decades. Now she lives with me and I freaking hate it. Especially since me and my fiancé worked our butts off to afford to rent a nice townhouse in BC, and she takes up a third of it. I have been in your situation and it is tough. You have some work ahead of you, else you'll never escape. It is that dire. This situation will consume you and destroy your relationship with your fiancé if you let it. You must deal with your mother and keep your fiancé out of it as much as possible. There is a reason we don't have as many father-in-law jokes. You must set goals and boundaries. Some of them must not depend on your mother at all. If you can't stand up to her, then you need to move to a new small place where she can't follow. Be prepared to make sacrifices here, else you're stuck with her. Lie to her and tell her the tiny new place is all you can afford. Rents are going up like crazy, and you can't house her. The evil landlord only allows 2 adults, etc. Don't let her guilt you. You are the next easiest option. If she can't live off you, she will find someone else. I got my mother to move out by mandating that she go to a psychiatrist, for which I would pay as a condition for her to continue living with me. She'd finally moved out. She was diagnosed as bipolar after 20 years of using my sister and me financially and emotionally. I know why our other 3 siblings went no contact with her. As narcissistic as this sounds, when my ex-boyfriend cheated on me with my ex-best friend, I just try to keep reminding myself that their actions are proof that I am better than them. My morals are at a higher standard. I treat people I care about better than them. I am honest and would never hurt others the same way they did me. Suffice to say, they are truly, truly beneath you. Almost everyone who cheats has something wrong with them. Maybe they're insecure. Maybe they're mentally unwell. Maybe they're bad at managing their romantic relationships. But regardless, cheating is not the actions of a well-adjusted, emotionally mature adult. You're better than them. Remember that. Last story. My ex-wife changed to a different person when we moved to her hometown. We were divorced 12 months later. My ex-wife, 36 female, and I, 36 male, met when we were 25. We were plucky, ambitious people, trying to be better versions of ourselves. We each were flawed, but we help each other become stronger, and each patch the other's weakness. 10 years later, we moved to her hometown. We had visited before. I get along okay with her family members. The move was supposed to be temporary and short, before moving to another country. But now we were part of the environment she grew up in. I felt suddenly she became a different person. As the youngest in a big family, she basically stopped making any decisions, and instead pushing for what her older siblings recommended. Slowly, it was like she felt like she didn't need to lift a finger to get anything anymore. There's always a family member to help out. But when we were alone, it became for me to cook, drive her around, take out the trash, etc. Because in my family, we do things for each other. I shouldn't even need to ask you. Suddenly, it was important that we show up to parties with her high school friends. These are people I hardly knew, but it's expected that we attend. It would be embarrassing if we don't. They'll be hurt. When we met, we were going to help each other be better people so that we can then help other people. I helped her gain skills. She helped me gain confidence and assertiveness. And then suddenly, what's important became the opposite. It was about what other people think. It was about talking and showing rather than doing. And my needs became secondary. This became evident when she made the decision that she now wanted to live in this town permanently. Maybe it had always been like this, but I swear that being back in the place she grew up, with all the older relationship patterns, behavior, and mindset, was too much of a change for me to see. I felt like someone I loved, with all her precious values and goals that I admired, was being usurped and slowly being erased. In the early days of living there, I said out loud jokingly, "It's like you are regressing to a younger version of you." 1 year later, it wasn't so funny to me anymore, but no one seemed to see it. Perhaps her family and friends only ever saw this version of her, or perhaps I was wrong in what I thought I saw all these years. I still like to think, though, that it was because of the place, that it changed her into the patterns of her younger self. And one day, if she ever moves away, the woman I knew and admire will emerge again. And then the reason for me leaving will be validated for everyone, for her, and for myself. Edit. I just want to add this detail so that I can let it go as well. I mentioned that throughout our relationship, she had helped me with my assertiveness. One of the things that made me lose hope was when she said, "I know that you're learning to set your boundaries, but when it comes to my family, this is not the time." I've always admired both of her parents, especially her dad, a kind, hardworking, generous man. Since moving, I saw up close a subtle dynamic in which he was doing all the heavy lifting for his wife, and children as well. I saw that his wife was taking him for granted. My husband will do it, etc. My ex-wife saw this and criticized her mom for it, but I could feel the behavior creeping into her, and hence our relationship. Another thing that made me lose hope was when we had her family over for dinner, and she was like, "Cook the food, serve the food, where are the cutleries? What did you get everyone for dessert?" It was the way she treated me in front of everyone. That was one of the last days. Some people, when surrounded by their family, can revert back to that childlike state of mind depending on their home life growing up, especially if they're being enabled. While it would be upsetting for you to have to bear it, I think you've done the right thing for yourself. You're only 36 from your post, and you've still got a lot of life left in you. If my uncle, who's around the same age as you, and has absolutely no social media whatsoever, can get a date, then so can you, if that's what you're wanting. Just don't ever feel guilty for choosing yourself. Oof, this is me when I'm with my family. I revert back to my teen years when my mom did everything. Mind you, I'm a stay-at-home mom that literally does everything for the house. I don't know. My mom enjoys it though, so I let her. It's also nice for me to have someone take care of me for a change in a maternal way. It makes me feel good. It sounds like she was babied her whole life as the youngest child, moved out and was forced to become independent. And now that she's back in that environment, she's reverted back to that mindset as her default. She believes she deserves to be babied and catered to. Otherwise, the whole family does things for each other would apply to both of you, not just you becoming the de facto adult of the situation, while she doesn't do her part to cook or clean. Not sure if it's something she's fully aware of, but if you've tried to talk to her about it and nothing has changed, I think you are well within your rights to divorce, as the qualities you valued in her are no longer present. Am I the a-hole I upset my pregnant wife and caused her to cry? My wife is 2 months pregnant. Yesterday was my birthday. When I went into the kitchen, my wife told me that she was going to work and wouldn't be home until 8. She didn't even acknowledge my birthday. I asked her if she had made any breakfast. She usually cooks breakfast for me on my birthday, but she told me to manage with cereal. I thought maybe she wants to surprise me or something and just kept quiet. My parents, siblings, and friends called me after that to wish me. I cooked lunch for the both of us and drove to my wife's office to spend time with her. I sat in the park opposite to her office waiting for her to come out for lunch. I think one of her colleagues saw me waiting for her and informed her, because she came down soon after and told me to go back home and not embarrass her in front of her colleagues. I handed her the lunch and asked her to at least have it instead of the cafeteria food. She took it and threw it into the trash. I was hurt and embarrassed, so I immediately left for home. I was really upset by then and no longer wanted to spend time with her. I went to a movie, ate at my favorite diner, then went to the beach for the rest of the evening. When I went back home, my wife surprised me with a cake and party. My in-laws and parents were there. I ignored my wife and went back into the room. My mom got mad at me because apparently my wife was crying. I then proceeded to narrate everything that happened that day to everyone present. My mom was the only one to side with my wife because she's pregnant. My wife defended herself, saying that her colleagues were teasing her by calling me a hand-packed husband. Now my mom is saying I'm being a baby and that my wife is pregnant and I should be making her cry. My in-laws and my dad are supporting me. Am I the a-hole? Now for the top comments. Having a surprise party has nothing to do with throwing the lunch in the garbage. Opie stated that wife agreed and knew he would be there. Then she backtracked when her coworkers made fun of her. These are two separate issues. She made you think she did nothing for your birthday so she could surprise you later. People think that makes the surprise bigger. It doesn't. It just sucks. She is the a-hole for the way she handled lunch. She is the a-hole for not addressing the situation with you later, apologizing for it and having a normal conversation about it. Also, being pregnant doesn't mean to get to be a jerk and then cry when someone calls you out on it. It's not a get-out-of-jail card for awful behavior. Not the a-hole. Not the a-hole. You're obviously looking for attention from your wife. She tried to hide your surprise party by hurting you and pretending she forgot your birthday. She was overly mean. Who cares if her friends made fun of her at work? They only did that because they're jealous. She threw the lunch you brought in the trash. She should not have been crying over your reaction. She should be crying over her awful behavior. She ruined your whole birthday and wants to cry since you don't want to see her now. Absolutely not. Just because she's pregnant doesn't mean you don't have feelings, that those feelings aren't valid. Hormones might be the cause of it, but it's not an excuse to be a prick to your partner. I could understand not making breakfast. It feels funny not to acknowledge your partner's birthday, even if you have something planned for them later. The lunch thing was totally uncalled for and totally would have ruined my day. She shouldn't really give a crap what her colleagues think, especially if they're using an insult like henpecked. They're people who aren't worth worrying about. Happy belated birthday. I hope you enjoy the movie. Next story. Am I the a-hole for turning the oven off while cooking Thanksgiving dinner after my husband kept shouting orders at me? I, 33 female work-from-home job, have been married to my husband, 37 male working in the military, for a year. We had a long-distance relationship, but I'd met his family a handful of times. I wasn't allowed to take part in Thanksgiving dinner preparation till I was officially married into the family. This year, my husband invited his family to spend Thanksgiving with us. I was happy to cook Thanksgiving turkey for the family, but the thing is, whenever we're having guests over and I'm the one cooking, my husband pops into the kitchen every few minutes, literally shouting stuff like, "So how we doing? The chicken's not ready yet? Hurry up, let's go." And that shrimp ain't going to cook itself. And let's go, come on. Guests are starving. And you're too slow, move faster. And come on, let's go. Like I was in the military or one of his recruits. P.S. frog voice from constantly yelling. Him constantly pressuring me like that cost me so many injuries because I crack under pressure and get really stressed, resulting in having accidents. Thanksgiving Day while I was cooking dinner, he did the same thing. He kept coming into the kitchen saying, "Folks are getting hungry. What's taking you so long?" Then full on shouting, "Come on, let's go. And hurry up, let's go, move." I was like angry at this point, and his family were dumbfounded. His mom offered to help, but I said thanks and warned him to stop or I will stop cooking. But he doubled down with an expected 4 minutes. Let's go. I stop, turn the oven off and tell him I was done, no more cooking. He starts arguing with me saying he can't stop mid-task, but I apologized to the family and tell his mom she was welcome to finish the turkey, but he didn't allow her and told him he was taking them to eat out to spite me after what I did. I was shocked. I didn't expect this. They literally got in their cars and left. He got home by 11 and said what I did, turning the oven and refusing to serve his family who were guests, were tasteless and irresponsible. I said it was putting me under pressure, and I couldn't take it, but still said this was on me since he is used to military routine. And I'm acting like I'm surprised with how he tends to get things mixed up between work and home. It's been days that he keeps cold shouldering me for ruining our first Thanksgiving with his family. Despite saying I'm not angry, I got better things to do, his family's pissed. Am I the a-hole? Not the a-hole. Get out. This man is abusive. He orders you around and punishes you when you do not comply. He then uses the fact that he's in the military to excuse his actions and place the blame solely on you. His family have his back, so he will get worse. Get out early before that happens. This is who he is. He is an abuser who thinks he has a right to control you and punish you how he sees fit. Girl, both my grandfathers fought in World War II, and they knew damn well they'd been enlisting for World War III if they spoke to their wives that way. The military is no excuse. Your husband is an abusive and grateful a-hole. Not an a-hole. Right, he can't implement certain methods from the army in the household. It's an amicable and hospitable environment, not a meddling for a fight. So, when's the divorce? The behavior you've described is clinically termed verbal and emotional mistreatment. No one should ever have to endure that, especially from a spouse. Not today, Hall, and you're being mistreated. There's no sugarcoating it. Next story is titled, Am I the a-hole for standing on a chair while 7 months pregnant and then blaming my husband when I almost fell? I'm 7 months pregnant and I can't reach the top shelves in our cupboards without standing on a chair. I wanted to make a snack, but I couldn't reach one of the ingredients to make it. And climbing on a chair at this point is both difficult and not something my husband wants me to do. So I went to ask my husband if he could get it for me. But he was on an important work call, so he told me to wait 5 minutes. 5 minutes turned into 30, and by that time he had to be in a meeting which lasted over an hour. I got impatient and I was hungry, so I decided to just climb on the chair and get it myself. I was just grabbing it when my husband walked in and asked me what the hell I was doing. I didn't hear him approaching, so his voice scared me and I almost fell off the chair. He tried to use it as justification for why I should have been on the chair in the first place. But I told him it was his fault because if he hadn't scared me, I never would have almost fallen. I also said it was his fault because he had not got it for me when I asked. And he said he was sorry but he had a meeting. I asked him what the point of being the boss was, if he couldn't be 30 seconds late to help his pregnant wife quickly, which in hindsight was a petty thing to say. This really upset him, and he told me not to blame him and that I shouldn't have used the chair in the first place, since we had already agreed I wouldn't. He also told me not to do it again. Am I the a-hole? You're the a-hole. Buy a step stool like an adult, or rearrange your pantry. I think everyone sucks here. If you walk in a room and see a pregnant lady standing on a chair, yelling suddenly is a truly terrible reaction. Really should not yell suddenly if you see anyone balanced on anything that isn't aware you are there. She could have fallen off a step stool as easily as a chair if startled. You're the a-hole. This wasn't a husband dinking around on his phone, tinkering with a car, gaming, etc. He was on a work call and you were impatient and wanted a very specific snack. You could have waited, but chose not to. Be an adult and take responsibility for your poor choices instead of blaming your husband. Your husband took responsibility for not asking for a quick break to help you out. You're an a-hole for not taking responsibility for your peace in this situation. Next story. Am I the a-hole for having my wedding on brother's divorce anniversary? I, male 28, have been engaged to my fiancé, female 26, for almost a year. What caused the delay was my future mother-in-law falling sick. My fiancé and I decided to have our wedding on January 11th, 2022. We've already booked a venue, set the guest lists, food menu, etc. My parents live hours away, but once they received the invitations, they called to confirm the date, then demanded I drop everything and come alone to talk about the issue they're having with the date. I took time off work and went to see them, and they sat me down to remind me that on the 11th of January 2 years ago, my brother Isaac, 30, got officially separated from his ex-wife of 8 years. They went on about what a dreadful day that day is for the family at Isaac, and told them he won't come to my wedding since this day happens to be his divorce anniversary. Unless I change the date, since he said he's planning on getting drunk and crying his eyes out for doing what he did, and cause his ex to leave him. I was flabbergasted. Like, I couldn't tell if they were kidding, but I politely said I'm sorry, but not changing the date, period. Dad angrily said, "Why the rush? You have a lifetime ahead of you. No harm in moving the wedding date. Think about it." I explained that my fiancé and I already paid for the venue and set everything up, so we can't cancel it now. Mom firmly told me to leave my fiancé out it because she had nothing to do with the conversation we were having. I got upset and said I'm not changing my wedding date. And Mom said that I'm clearly choosing a day-long celebration over my brother, and warned me that I'll have to live with the fact I ruined my relationship with him over this. Dad added, telling me to think of it this way. I'm getting married on the very same date my brother's marriage ended, and asked how I can possibly not feel guilty for having my wedding anniversary be my brother's divorce anniversary for years to come. But I argued that Isaac's only himself to blame for sleeping with someone else while married, and my ex-sister-in-law was right to decide she was having none of it. My parents justified it as he was drunk, but the outcome's the same. Before I left, they said if Isaac isn't coming, then they too won't come to the wedding, which devastated me because I want my family with me to share my joy. Because this is a big deal for me, and I wasn't sure if my parents have a point, seeing more and more family are saying they won't attend if I'll still have my wedding on January 11th. Am I the a-hole? Not the a-hole, and I'm confused. I'm currently going through a divorce. and I already have at least 3 anniversaries. The day she left, the day she told me she definitely wasn't coming back, the day the decree nisi was granted, and there will be another when the decree absolute comes through. Then of course there's our wedding anniversary, the anniversary of the day we met, and her birthday. So many dates that people can't steal for happier reasons. Clearly, I've been doing it wrong, because I have completely failed to demand that my entire family arranges their life around these poignant but ultimately meaningless dates. I hadn't realized that I was supposed to spend the rest of my life mourning a marriage that is over and refusing to enjoy anything else. Yeah, it's the same reaction I had when they told me that, which is just ridiculous. But whatever Isaac says goes, I guess. Not stay home. Your parents sound like awful people. Prioritizing your brother's bad decisions over your most important day. If anything, that should be a day they want to forget and should be glad to have a happier anniversary to replace it. Also, who the hell celebrates their divorce anniversary? That's seriously messed up. Oh, boo-hoo. I'm a garbage person who cheated on my wife and she left me. Let me ruin this day for everyone else for the rest of my life because of my bad decisions. Now for the last story. Am I the a-hole for siding with my husband when he insulted my brother? I'm 27 female, the youngest of 4 children. 31 female, 33 male, and 35 female. I got married 6 months ago to my high school sweetheart, 27 male. My husband has been part of our family since we had our first anniversary together. He knows all my family members and they adore him. My family is very problematic though. All of them, except one of my sisters, are babying my 33-year-old brother too much. My brother is single and he's disappointed no woman approaches him. He used to date a girl 3 years ago, but she broke up with him because she couldn't deal with his immaturity. My brother is very immature and has a superiority complex. He's always putting other people down, he's very judgmental, and he always wants to make himself the center of attention. He's also insulted my husband behind his back multiple times, and I've gotten huge fights with him about this. He has admitted he's mad that my husband, who's younger than him, has his life set, and he thinks my husband owes him respect because he's older, and demands my husband never speaks of his goals or achievements in front of him. It's gotten so bad to the point we've gone low contact with my brother. My mom, dad, and one of my sisters believe that life is unfair for my brother, and they said they wish he had what my husband and I have. My mom also believes that my brother is too good for any woman, since no woman deserves such a precious person like him. I'm now pregnant with my first child, and I invited my family into a casual dinner to make the announcement. We invited my brother too. But then during the announcement, my brother commented something along the lines of, "Oh, now my dear brother-in-law is showing off about knocking up my sister," which was very insulting to both me as a woman, but also my husband. Then my husband then replied to him, before I could talk, and told him, "With this attitude, you still wonder why no woman puts up with you? You complain about being alone too much for someone who displays behaviors that will be the reason you stay alone forever. Now apologize to my wife and then to me." My mom, dad, and sister sided with my brother, but my other sister sided with us. I told my brother that he either apologizes or he walks out, but how he ruined our announcement with his entitlement. My brother got up and left. My parents and sister stayed, but my mom and sister took me to the side and told me I'm the a-hole for siding with my husband and embarrassing my brother by throwing him under the bus, and how I could have sorted this out in private without speaking up. Not the a-hole. If you can't handle being publicly called out for being an a-hole, don't be an a-hole in public. No one threw him under the bus. All he had to do was apologize, but he doubled down. OP, would your father be okay someone talking about his wife like that? Or make that kind of statement to his wife? I'm betting no. He'd be okay with a son/brother saying that, because he's had it so hard. Not stay home. Why should your brother be allowed to be a jerk in public, but your husband can't defend you from jerks in public? Right, because brother is special. Well, I guess you should accept that being around your family is just too painful for the poor guy, and you should never subject him to that again. You gave to protect him from being exposed to the pain of your husband's, and your child's presence. Finally, congratulations on your little one. Not stay home. Kudos to your hubby for speaking the truth. Your hubby did the right thing, as have you. Your family are enablers. Your brother will never get better. He will always be dependent on your parents due to the entitlement the enabling causes. Not only is the husband a freaking star for what he did, he's also given advice that the brother should really listen to. He's been more helpful than the brother deserves. If only certain family members could remove heads from bottoms and see that. First story is titled, Am I the a-hole for firing my son? I'll get straight to the issue. My male 43, 17-year-old son Adam has been trying to become independent and preparing to move to college, but was struggling to find a job. I own a private warehouse as a side job to earn a living, so my wife suggested I hire my son to work at the warehouse. Moving boxes, bringing workers lunch, helping with cleaning, that kind of stuff. She said it is for both of our benefits, since he couldn't find a job and we needed to hire someone new. I agreed, and Adam was so happy and excited to start working. We agreed on a salary and work hours, so he still have time to study and practice. The first couple of weeks were going fine. That is, until one day. The workers were moving boxes, computers, into the warehouse. The client wanted them to be stored for a few days, and already arranged before they arrived. It was all written down, including the number of computers we stored. In the evening, while I was checking, I noticed there was one computer missing. I gathered all the workers except for Adam, and they had no idea and thought there was a mistake. I brought it up home, and Adam told me that he saw one of the workers putting a box in the garage to take home with him. I was confused, since he couldn't specify which worker it was. He eventually gave me a name and I went to talk to the worker. He denied it, and I ended up giving him X amount of time to bring back the box, and then I discussed why he did what he did. The worker is a single dad with 3 kids, and I've known him for a while, and I wanted to give him a chance. The next day I was busy. My daughter was in the hospital, and I got back to the warehouse at 8 p.m. and it occurred to me to check the cameras. What I saw was Adam putting a box in the back of his friend's car, and then the car left. I knew his friend, and knew Adam stole the computer. I went home and I confronted him. My wife sided with him when he denied it, and after arguing for hours, I fired him and told him he was lucky I didn't call the police. This was my responsibility. The client entrusted me with his computers, and Adam stole on the job. Adam started crying. My wife said it was wrong for firing him, that it was extreme and should have just took from his salary. She refused to drop it and tried to convince me to hire him again, but I refused. I apologized to my worker and I told him if there's anyone he knows who needs this job, I'll be more than happy to hire them. He brought his brother and he started working with us right away. Now, my family calling me an a-hole for hiring an outsider and not my son. Edit. The box was being kept at his friend's place. His friend is such a disrespectful a-hole, I won't be surprised if he was the one who came up with the idea. However, it was Adam who took it, and so he needed to be fired. This is not okay, nor is it acceptable. Now for the top comments. Wow, not the a-hole in this instance, but your family is terrible. Adam happily threw someone he viewed as a worker, and not a single father of 3, under the bus for his crime. Turn your son in to the cops. He is going to hurt more people if you don't. I would have voted everyone sucks here, but we're talking about the one instance, and not your parenting in general. It's unlikely, however, that you are completely blameless for your son's behavior. Your family sounds awful, and you had a hand in creating that. Edit based on OP's new info. Stop. This is not about your son's friend being such a disrespectful a-hole who you think probably came up with the idea. Even though you acknowledge that your son deserves to be fired for his actions, that overall thought process is enabling your son. 100% agree with you. In my opinion, it doesn't matter if he's his son. He's his employee and committed theft. That's a crime and should be reported to the authorities. Big not the a-hole. This is a serious offense, and if this happened with another boss, he might be sitting at a police office now. You're a good boss. I suggest showing your wife the video if she's taking his side. I can't imagine, but the police would have absolutely gotten involved if this was someone else and not me. I'm not tolerating his behavior. I know what he did was wrong, but I wanted to give him a warning to realize his mistake and learn from it. Not the a-hole. He stole from his place of employment and lied about it, and tried to get an innocent employee in trouble for it. If I had done that, I'd freaking expect to get fired. I think trying to get an innocent coworker fired for it was way worse than the stealing itself. That's disturbing, not the a-hole. Am I the a-hole for telling my wife to get over herself, or I'll go to my son's wedding without her? It's a bit of a complicated situation right now. My wife and I got married 13 years ago. I had a son from my previous marriage who was 15 at the time, and my wife had a daughter who was also 15. The kids were already older, and we never believed in pushing them to bond if they weren't interested in that. They had their own separate lives before we married, so there was no point in forcing them into something. I'm guessing you all know where this is going. 2 years ago, my son and stepdaughter, now both 28, sat us down and confessed they have been dating over a year. It was a bit strange for me hearing this, but I was respectful of their relationship, although it did take a while for it not to feel weird for me anymore. I did always consider my stepdaughter like my own and were very close. My wife was upset at first, but she worked it out by believing they would break up eventually. Now that they announced they're engaged and plan to have a small wedding in a couple months, my wife is furious. All phone calls to her daughter have been my wife demanding they break up and keeps telling her it's not natural. This has upset them both, and my wife declared she's not going to their wedding. We had a huge fight because I couldn't believe she would refuse to go to her own daughter's wedding over this. It's not like this came out of nowhere. They have been in a serious relationship for years, so she's had time to get over whatever weirdness she feels about it. I finally told her that she needs to get over herself, and if she refuses to go, then I will simply go without her. She's now mad at me for not having her back on this, and acting like what she feels doesn't matter. My wife says she's allowed to not approve of their marriage, and as her husband, she thought I would have her full support on this, so she feels in a way betrayed that I'm not taking her feelings into consideration. But it's also my son's wedding, and I would never miss it. Things are very tense, and she's still telling me she's hurt by my actions, and that I would willingly go to something she's not comfortable with. I'd like to know if I'm being the a-hole for perhaps being too dismissive of my wife's feelings about this. I understand why she feels weird, but like I said, she's had time to get over it, so I don't know. Now for the top comments. Not the a-hole. Offer to divorce her so the kids' relationship isn't weird anymore. My wife demanding they break up and keeps telling her it's not natural. This is the part that amuses me. It's not like they're biologically related, and they didn't grow up together, so there was likely never a sibling dynamic. If anything, when you put two horny and related teenagers together, things are probably going to happen. Not at a-hole. Yes, your wife is allowed to disapprove of this relationship, but it also means that you are allowed to approve of it. Same rules for everyone. She's projecting her behavior onto you. She doesn't care about your feelings and dismisses them since they don't agree with her. I don't fully understand the issues your wife has, to be honest. It's not natural. They aren't related in any way. They met when they were 15, old enough to make their own decisions. Even though they weren't pushed to be step-siblings, my wife and I still viewed them as our children. My son became closer to her and they had a friendly relationship before this. Same goes for my stepdaughter and I, but neither of them formed that type of familial bond with each other. To her, they're both her children, so that's why she finds it strange and unnatural. Next story. Am I the a-hole for lying in my therapy sessions because I knew my mom was eavesdropping? So I, female 18, live at home with my mom, dad, and siblings. With past events, I've started seeing my therapist again. My mom is kind of controlling and hates that she hasn't been able to sit in my doctor's visits / therapy sessions since I was 16. With that being said, me announcing I'm seeing my therapist again but through video calls, my mom has been trying to find ways to destroy my electronics, so I'm forced not to see a therapist. The last 2 months, I've noticed anything I mentioned in my therapy sessions, she would suddenly bring it up in conversations. For example, I talked to my therapist about being depressed and missing my best friend because I cannot function without her. She's not dead. I just haven't seen her in person since May last year. And in the middle of my dad and I talking about online games, she asked me if I was depressed and if I missed my best friend. Coincidence? Maybe. But in case that wasn't enough proof, here's another example. I was talking to my therapist about an old friend from camp finding me on social media and getting in contact with me. And that same day, my mom asks me if I've talked to any old friends from camp lately. I finally realized I wasn't overreacting, and she, in fact, was listening in on my sessions. So I told my therapist about my suspicions, and with her permission, during our last meet, I started spewing out as many sinful lies I could. Basically saying things like, I was having intercourse with multiple men from work, that I've been doing these. I said I thought I was pregnant and I didn't know who the father could be. You get the picture. The rest of the day, my mom was angry and throwing things around. Finally, during dinner, she broke and started calling me names and expressing how disappointed she was in me and how I've turned into such a disgusting person. I asked how she could have known, as I've only told my therapist, which forced her to come clean and listening in. Only after she admitted to it, I came clean about lying about the whole thing. My dad said I shouldn't have put her in such a position to believe I'm doing any of which I said. My siblings agreed and said I could have just confronted her about eavesdropping. But confronting my mother would result in me being told I'm overreacting. Am I the a-hole for misleading her? I want to add a few things. I cannot move out because there's nowhere I can go and I'm flat broke, but I am saving. There's nowhere else I can have the sessions but in my room, and I don't have any extra electronics to play because it's usually too loud, and any quieter would be useless. Not the a-hole. Lol. Kudos to the therapist for playing along. Hope she gave you advice on how to stop your mom listening in though. Hey OP, I know you said you don't have anywhere else to go. I felt that way too, but there are options. Could you go outside and sit in a car? Or maybe you could go somewhere outside your home. If it's cold outside, that might not be ideal. But consider places you could walk to where there wouldn't be a lot of people. Definitely look into headphones and talk to your therapist about this. I've been where you are and it sucks, but it helps so much to find a different location. Edit. OP, where is your dad in all this? And how does he feel about your eavesdropping? Can you get any support from him? Not the a-hole. Your mom is crossing major boundaries. Your dad is enabling her. I hope you can find a way to restore your therapy sessions properly. Not the a-hole. Can you set up the session where you have headphones to listen to your therapist, but you type your side so she doesn't hear? The last story is titled, Am I the a-hole for refusing to give my ex her mother's ashes? So I get the title sounds like an immediate yes, but hear me out. I grew up in a small town in New South Wales and met a girl we'll call Emily in primary school. We instantly became friends, and because of a rough home life, I was at her house constantly and her family became like a second family to me. I was there when her dad died and when her little sister Carol was born. I wasn't in the room, lol. I got on especially well with her mother Greta, since I never really had one. Toward the end of high school, me and Emily started dating and decided to get married when we were both 20. However, we soon found out that we wanted different things in life. Emily wanted to go out from our small town and make a name for herself, whereas I just wanted to live here, work, and have a simple life. We eventually decided to get divorced, and Emily moved away. I stayed friends with Greta and visited often, since she lived alone and we had a weekly family game night. However, Emily became more and more harder to contact and didn't visit nearly as much as she said she was going to. Greta eventually got breast cancer and went through 2 rounds of chemo before dying from it. This went on for a year and a half and Emily visited 3 times. She lived 3 hours away, but still. When she died, I immediately tried calling her, and like usual, she ignored a call. Even answered once or twice just to hang up. Her sister had to break the news, and even then, she wouldn't answer. Until the 7th call, which she answered by screaming, "What?" I also want to point out, because I feel it's important, that there were no COVID travel restrictions at this time. Nothing was stopping her from coming. So we flew her down for the funeral and we all went to the ceremony. It was so hard for me, and I spent the whole time holding Carol as she was hysterical. I gave a eulogy and so did Carol, but had to stop halfway through because it was too much. We then went to hear the will get read. Greta left girls the home and its contents, which Emily agreed to just give to Carol. And I was surprised because Greta bought a used school bus off her uncle in Broken Hill and left it to me in the will, as I always talked about converting one into an RV. He had even driven it down for me and was at my house right now. Then came the big surprise. I was left Greta's ashes. Emily freaked out and said that it should go to her since I wasn't even part of the family. I disagreed, as I had been around way more than her and had helped Greta through her recovery as well as everything else. Carol took my side, and Emily stormed out. Me and Carol decided to spread her ashes in the river, which was her favorite place in town, as she walked along it with her dog. We told Emily, but she just went back to her house and refused to be part of it. We decided to wait for her, and told her that she has a year to change her mind, and we're just going to spread them after that. I'm pretty confident that I've done the right thing, but I have a bad feeling in my gut about it all. Am I the a-hole? Now, for the comments. Not the a-hole. She willed them to you. This was her wish. Absolutely this. It's as simple as that. No excuses. Not an a-hole. I was left Greta's ashes. That is literally all that matters. Not an a-hole. Yep, the only part of the story that matters. She bequeathed them to you for a reason. Not an a-hole. You were left the ashes because you were trusted to do what is best with them. If Emily doesn't come around, you might consider a memorial necklace for her, with a small portion of the ashes before spreading the rest. That's a good idea. Thanks. I'll look into it.